had a bad dream.
Touch my child again and you're gone.
187 nights. That's how long Jin-Woo Park had watched his children refuse to sleep. 187 nights of staring at security monitors, watching 7-year-old twins sit up in bed with eyes wide open, backs straight, waiting for dangers that had already destroyed their world. 187 nights of counting the cost of a single mistake that had stolen everything. But on night 188, everything changed. And it wasn't a doctor who saved them. It wasn't a specialist. It wasn't anyone Jin-Woo had spent $2 million trying to find. It was a cleaning woman who wasn't supposed to be in their room at all. 2:47 in the morning. Jin-Woo sat in his study, the glow of security monitors casting blue shadows across his face. He'd stopped needing to check the screens weeks ago. He already knew what he'd see. Bedroom 3, second floor. Minjun and Sora, his babies, sitting up, staring, trapped in a waking nightmare that never ended. 6 months ago, their mother had died on the kitchen floor while Jin-Woo ignored her phone calls. 3 calls. He'd sent every single one to voicemail because a presentation was more important than his wife asking him to come home. 2 hours. That's all he'd needed. Just 2 more hours to get the numbers right, to impress the investors, to save the company he'd built from nothing. 2 hours that cost him everything. The men who broke in through the back door were looking for jewelry, for cash, for anything valuable. They found Catherine loading the dishwasher instead. They found a woman who screamed when she should have stayed quiet. They found a problem they solved with a single gunshot that echoed through the house and shattered 2 children who'd been having a tea party upstairs. Minjun and Sora had run downstairs when they heard their mother scream. They'd seen everything, the men fleeing, their mother bleeding, the life draining from her eyes while they stood frozen, too small to help, too young to understand that some things can't be fixed. Now, Jin-Woo lived in a fortress. 47 cameras, biometric locks on every door, bulletproof windows, armed guards, panic rooms, everything he should have installed 6 months ago but didn't because he was too busy, too confident, too stupid to believe that bad things could happen to his family. The security was perfect now, impenetrable, useless. Because the danger wasn't outside anymore. It was inside his children's heads, replaying every night, a movie they couldn't stop watching. And all his billions, all his technology, all his desperation couldn't buy them a single night of peace. He'd tried everything. Sleep coaches who taught breathing exercises the twins were too traumatized to practice. Child psychologists who prescribed routines that felt like torture. Meditation apps. White noise machines. Weighted blankets that made them feel trapped. Night lights that cast shadows they were afraid of. Specialists who charged thousands of dollars to admit they had no idea how to help. The current nanny, Mrs. Chen, was the 8th one in 6 months. A grandmother with 40 years of experience and infinite patience. She lasted longer than the others because she didn't try to fix them. She just sat with them from 8 until midnight, reading stories they didn't hear, singing songs they didn't respond to, holding hands they gripped like drowning victims clutching driftwood. But at midnight, exhaustion won. Mrs. Chen would retreat to the guest room and try to sleep before the inevitable call came, before one or both twins had a panic attack, before Jin-Woo had to admit again that he'd failed to protect the only people who mattered. Tonight was supposed to be different. Jin-Woo had canceled his trip to Seoul, sent the board of directors an excuse about illness, and come home to be present for his children, to sit with them, to prove he could be the father they needed instead of the businessman who'd let their mother die. But here he was, in his office, watching screens, keeping distance between himself and the evidence of his failure. His phone buzzed. His mother. "You missed the board meeting. Marcus Chen is telling everyone you've had a nervous breakdown. Call me immediately." He didn't call. His mother had opinions about everything, about how he should have married a Korean woman instead of Catherine, about how the twins needed discipline, not therapy, about how he was raising them to be weak. She had solutions for everything except the one problem that mattered. She couldn't bring Catherine back. She couldn't make the twins feel safe. She couldn't erase what they'd seen. Jin-Woo switched camera views. The kitchen. Someone was there. His heart jumped before he remembered. The new cleaning company. They worked overnight shifts, came with background checks and insurance guarantees and promises of discretion. One of the crew was scrubbing the counter with focused intensity, bent over her work like it was the most important thing in the world. He watched her for a moment, recognizing something in the set of her shoulders. Exhaustion. The bone-deep kind that came from working too hard for too long because stopping meant having to think. He knew that feeling. Another camera. Back to the twins. Sora had moved to the window, standing in pink unicorn pajamas, so still she could have been a statue. Minjun tracked her from his bed, eyes following his sister with the hypervigilance of someone who'd learned that safety was an illusion, and the only person you could trust was the one who'd survived the same nightmare. Jin-Woo's business line rang. David Kim, his COO. "We have a problem. Marcus Chen just announced a counter-offer to our Singapore expansion. He's undercutting us by 30%. That's below cost. He's trying to force us out. The board wants you in Seoul tomorrow morning. Emergency session." "I can't. Jin-Woo, if you don't show up, they're going to interpret it as you stepping back. Marcus is going to push for a vote of no confidence. You're going to lose everything you built." Jin-Woo looked at the monitor, at his daughter pressing her forehead against cold glass, at his son whispering something too quiet for the cameras to pick up. "I already lost everything," he said quietly. "The company is just money. My children are what matter, and for 6 months I haven't been able to help them. So, no. I'm not getting on a plane to save a business that's already cost me too much." "Then let me help you with the one thing that might actually matter. Find whoever can help those kids, pay them whatever it takes, and then save your company, because if Marcus takes over, he's going to gut the security division. The same technology protecting your house right now, it'll be gone." Jin-Woo hadn't thought about that. The company wasn't just his legacy. It was the foundation of the fortress keeping his family safe. If Marcus took over, he'd dismantle everything. Sell the patents, eliminate the research, destroy the very technology Jin-Woo had installed in every corner of his home. Before Jin-Woo could respond, something on the monitors caught his attention. The cleaning woman had moved to the second floor. She was mopping the hallway, methodical and focused. But then she stopped. Frozen. Her head tilted like she was listening to something. And Jin-Woo knew, with sudden certainty, that something was about to change. 3:17 in the morning. The exact moment when everything shifted. The woman heard a sound. A tiny, desperate whimper that could have been mistaken for pipes or the house settling. But she stopped moving, mop suspended above the bucket, her whole body going still in a way that suggested she recognized something most people would miss. Her name was Imani Williams, and she knew exactly what fear sounded like when it was trying very hard to stay silent. Because 12 years ago, she'd made that sound herself, hiding in the smoke of a burning apartment, listening to her little sister whimper under a bed, too terrified to move, too young to understand that the real monster wasn't under the bed, but creeping through the vents, filling their lungs with poison, while Immani slept on the couch, too exhausted to hear the alarm until it was too late. The whimper came again, louder, more desperate. Immani had 3 rules for her overnight jobs. Never touch anything personal. Never make noise. Never get involved. She'd broken the first 2 rules plenty of times. Knocked over a picture frame. Run a vacuum that was too loud. Small mistakes that didn't matter. But she'd never broken rule 3. Never in 12 years had she allowed herself to care about what happened behind the closed doors of the houses she cleaned. Never let herself get invested in the problems of people who lived in mansions with more bathrooms than she had rooms in her entire apartment. Until tonight. The sound came again, and this time she heard words. A child's voice, strained and panicked. I can't breathe! Sora! I can't breathe! Imani's hand moved to the bedroom door before her brain could stop it. She pressed her palm against the wood, feeling the vibration of small feet pacing. 2 children, moving in tandem, trapped in something she recognized with painful clarity. She shouldn't open the door. Her supervisor had been explicit. The Park family valued privacy. Bedrooms were off limits unless explicitly empty. This bedroom was not empty, but that sound, that specific pitch of terror trying to stay quiet. It was the same sound her sister Keisha had made the night of the fire. Trying not to cry, trying to be brave, trying to survive something no 6-year-old should have to survive. If you're watching this story and you want to know what happens next, if you want to see how one decision in the middle of the night changed everything for this broken family, I'd really appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button right now. This story gets intense, it gets emotional, and it's going to take you on a journey about trauma and healing and the unexpected ways broken people can help each other survive. So subscribe, and let's continue. The whimper turned into a gasp. Sharp, panicked, desperate. Imani's hand turned the doorknob. Inside, 2 7-year-old twins stood in the center of the room, holding hands so tightly their knuckles were white. The girl had her eyes squeezed shut, breathing in rapid, shallow gasps that Imani recognized immediately as the beginning of a full panic attack. The boy was trying to talk her through it, but his own breathing was almost as labored, his small face tight with the kind of fear that aged you decades in seconds. It's okay, the boy whispered. It's okay, Sora. We're safe. We're safe. Count with me. 1, 2, 3. But the girl couldn't count. She was hyperventilating, her small body starting to shake. In about 30 seconds, she was going to pass out. The boy looked up and saw Imani in the doorway. Their eyes met. Fear flashed across his face, then confusion, then something that looked almost like hope. Please, he whispered, his voice breaking. Please help her. Imani should have run for help. Should have found a parent, a nanny, anyone who was actually supposed to be taking care of these children at 3 a.m. But the girl was swaying now, her breathing so fast and shallow that unconsciousness was seconds away. And Imani knew something that no amount of training could teach. She knew what it felt like to drown in panic. She knew what it was like when your body betrayed you, and your brain convinced you that you were dying even though you were perfectly safe. She knew, because she'd lived it. Because she still lived it. Every night in her dreams. Every morning when she woke up remembering that Keisha and Marcus were gone. And it was her fault. She set down her mop, walked into the room, and lowered herself to the floor, 6 feet away from the twins, sitting cross-legged with her back against the wall. Hey, she said softly, keeping her voice calm and steady. My name is Imani. I know you're scared right now, and I want you to know that being scared is okay. You're allowed to be scared. The boy stared at her. The girl's eyes were still closed, but her breathing hitched slightly, like she was trying to listen through the panic. I'm going to teach you something that helped me when I couldn't breathe, Imani continued. It's called box breathing. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but if you want to try, I'll do it with you. We'll get through this together. The boy nodded. Just barely. The girl turned her head slightly toward Imani's voice. And in that moment, in a bedroom in a mansion at 3:17 in the morning, a cleaning woman who wasn't supposed to be there began to save 2 children that $2 million couldn't help. Okay, Imani said, making her voice soft but certain. Here's how it works. We're going to breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and hold again for 4 counts. Like drawing a box with our breath. Can you picture a box in your mind? Imani Williams had 3 rules for her overnight cleaning jobs. First, never touch anything personal. No family photos, no mail, no drawers that weren't explicitly part of her assignment. Second, never make noise. The whole point of overnight work was that the clients could wake up to a pristine home without ever knowing she'd been there. Third, and most important, never get involved. She was there to clean floors and counters and windows, not to solve problems or insert herself into the lives of people who lived in houses with more bathrooms than she had rooms in her entire apartment. She'd broken rules 1 and 2 plenty of times over the years. A knocked-over picture frame here, a vacuum cleaner that was louder than expected there, but she'd never broken Rule 3. Never in 12 years of cleaning other people's homes had she allowed herself to care about what happened behind their closed doors. Until tonight. The sound came again, a little louder this time. A child's whimper, laced with the kind of terror that made Imani's chest tighten with unwanted recognition. She stood in the hallway of the Park mansion, mop in hand, telling herself to keep walking. This wasn't her business. These weren't her children. She was here to clean the floors and leave before sunrise and collect her paycheck and move on to the next job. But her feet wouldn't move because that sound, that specific pitch of fear trying desperately to stay quiet, was the same sound her little sister had made the night of the fire. Keisha had been 6 years old, hiding under the bed in their grandmother's apartment, trying not to cry because she thought crying would make the monsters come. Except the monster had been smoke, creeping under the door, filling the room with poison while Immani slept on the couch in the living room, too exhausted from her shift at the grocery store to hear the smoke alarm until it was too late. Immani's hand moved to the bedroom door before her brain could stop it. She pressed her palm against the wood, feeling the faint vibration of movement on the other side. Someone was pacing. No, 2 people. Small feet moving in tandem across hardwood floors. She shouldn't open the door. She definitely shouldn't open the door. Her supervisor had made it very clear during the briefing that the Park family valued their privacy. The contract specified which rooms were to be cleaned and which were off-limits. Bedrooms were off-limits unless explicitly empty. This bedroom was clearly not empty. The whimper turned into a gasp, sharp and panicked. Immani heard a small voice whisper, "I can't breathe! Sora, I can't breathe!" Her hand was on the doorknob before she could think. She turned it slowly, quietly, pushing the door open just enough to see inside. 2 children stood in the center of the room, holding hands so tightly their knuckles were white. The girl, maybe 7 years old, had her eyes squeezed shut and was breathing in rapid, shallow gasps that Immani recognized immediately as the beginning of a panic attack. The boy, same age, identical features, was trying to talk his sister through it, but his own breathing was almost as labored. "It's okay," the boy was saying, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's okay. Sora. We're safe. We're safe. Count with me. 1, 2, 3. But the girl couldn't count. She was hyperventilating now, her small body starting to shake. The boy looked around desperately, and that's when he saw Immani standing in the doorway. Their eyes met. The boy's expression went through several rapid transformations. Fear, confusion, and then, unexpectedly, something that looked almost like hope. "Please," he whispered. "Please help her." Immani should have called for someone, should have found a parent or a nanny or whoever was supposed to be taking care of these children at 3 in the morning. But the girl was swaying now, her breathing so fast and shallow that she was going to pass out if someone didn't intervene in the next 30 seconds. Immani set down her mop and walked into the room, moving slowly so she wouldn't startle them further. She lowered herself to the floor about 6 feet away from the twins, sitting cross-legged with her back against the wall. "Hey," she said softly. "My name is Immani. I know you're scared right now, and that's okay. Being scared is okay." The boy stared at her. The girl's eyes were still closed, but her breathing hitched slightly like she was trying to listen through her panic. "I'm going to teach you something that helped me when I felt like I couldn't breathe," Immani continued, keeping her voice low and steady. "It's called box breathing. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but if you want to try, I'll do it with you." The boy nodded, just barely. The girl still had her eyes closed, but she'd turned her head slightly toward Imani's voice. Okay, here's how it works. We're going to breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and hold again for 4 counts, like drawing a box with our breath. Can you picture a box in your mind? The boy nodded again. Like a square, he whispered. Exactly like a square. Each side is 4 counts long. Let's start with the first side. Breathe in through your nose while I count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Imani breathed in slowly, making her breath audible so they could hear the rhythm. The boy tried to follow. The girl was still hyperventilating, but the pace had slowed slightly. Good. Now hold that breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. The boy held his breath, his chest puffed out with effort. The girl's eyes opened for the first time, unfocused but listening. Now, breathe out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. The boy exhaled shakily. The girl took one deeper breath, then another. And hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. They went through the box 3 times before the girl's breathing started to regulate. By the 5th round, both twins had lowered themselves to sit on the floor, still holding hands, but no longer gripping each other like lifelines. By the 7th round, the immediate crisis had passed. Imani didn't move, didn't try to get closer, or touch them, or do anything that might break whatever fragile trust had formed in the last few minutes. She just sat against the wall, breathing with them, showing them that panic could be survived 1 4-count box at a time. Better? She asked after a while. The girl nodded, still not speaking. The boy studied Imani with an intensity that was unsettling in someone so young. What are your names? Imani asked. Minjun, the boy said. She's Sora. We're twins. It's nice to meet you both. I'm sorry you were scared. We're always scared, Minjun said matter-of-factly. At night, especially. That's when the bad men came. Imani's heart squeezed. She'd read enough true crime articles while riding the bus between jobs to know what he meant. Home invasion! The Park Mansion security breach 6 months ago had been all over the news. Tech billionaire's wife murdered in front of children. She'd forgotten this was that family. I'm sorry that happened to you, Imani said. That must have been very scary. Our mom died, Sora said suddenly, her voice small and flat. We saw her. There was blood. I know what it's like to lose someone, Imani said quietly. My little sister and brother died when I was 16. There was a fire. Both twins looked at her with sudden, startling attention, like she'd just revealed she could speak their language. You saw them? Minjun asked. No, but I was supposed to be watching them. I fell asleep, and when I woke up, the apartment was on fire. I got out, but they didn't. Sora's eyes filled with tears. Did you have nightmares? Every single night for 2 years. Sometimes I still do. Does it get better? Minjun's voice was barely audible. Imani wanted to lie, wanted to tell them that time healed all wounds, and eventually the nightmares stopped and life went back to normal. But she'd spent 12 years learning that lies didn't help, even kind ones. It gets different, she said instead. The fear doesn't go away completely, but you learn how to live with it. You learn that you can be scared and brave at the same time. How? Sora whispered. By surviving each night, by breathing through the panic, by finding people who understand, by being gentle with yourself when the fear comes back. Imani paused. And by remembering that the people we lost wouldn't want us to stop living. Minjun's face crumpled slightly. Everyone says our mom would want us to be happy, but I don't know how to be happy when she's gone. Your mom would want you to be whatever you need to be. Sad sometimes, angry sometimes, scared sometimes, and yeah, eventually happy sometimes too. All of those feelings can be true at once. They sat in silence for a while. Imani checked her phone. 3:42 in the morning. She'd been in this room for 25 minutes. which meant she was 25 minutes behind on her cleaning schedule, which meant she'd have to work faster for the rest of the shift to make up the time. She should leave. Should get back to work before someone noticed she was in a room she wasn't supposed to be in, having a conversation she wasn't supposed to be having. But when she started to stand, Sora made a small sound of distress. "Are you leaving?" "I have to finish cleaning. That's my job." "Will you come back?" Minjun asked. "I don't know. The company sends different people to different houses. I might not be assigned here again." "But what if we get scared again?" Sora's voice was rising, panic creeping back in. Imani knelt down to their level. "Then you do the box breathing. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold. You don't need me for that. You can do it on your own." "It's not the same," Minjun said. "You understand. Everyone else just tries to make us feel better. You know it doesn't work like that." He was right, and Imani knew it. The difference between someone who'd lived through trauma and someone who'd only read about it in textbooks was enormous. It was the difference between sympathy and understanding, between trying to fix and being willing to sit in the broken parts. "I'll stay until you fall asleep," Imani heard herself say. "But just tonight, I can't make any promises beyond that." The twins looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that twins seemed able to have. Then they both nodded. "Okay," Minjun said. They climbed into their beds, still holding hands even though the beds were separated by a nightstand. Imani pulled a chair from the desk and positioned it between the two beds where both twins could see her. "Do you want me to tell you a story?" she asked. "No stories," Sora said firmly. "Stories have endings. We don't like endings." "Okay, no stories. Can you just talk?" Minjun asked. "About anything. Your voice is nice, it doesn't sound scared." So Imani talked. She told them about her 3 jobs, about the school where she cleaned classrooms and sometimes found sweet notes that students left for the janitor, about the hospital where she cleaned floors and sometimes saw miracles in the form of patients walking who weren't supposed to walk again, about houses like this one, where she moved through rooms like a ghost, leaving everything cleaner than she found it. She told them about her studio apartment with the window that looked out at a brick wall, about her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who left dumplings outside her door once a week, about the stray cat she'd been feeding for 3 years, who she'd named Winston, even though she was pretty sure Winston was a girl. She talked about the small, ordinary moments that made up a life. The way morning light looked coming through a dirty window. The satisfaction of getting a stubborn stain out of grout. The smell of rain on concrete. The taste of coffee at 4 in the morning when you'd been working all night and had another shift in 3 hours. She made her life sound fuller than it was, because these children needed to know that life could be small and quiet and still worth living. That you didn't need a mansion or a fortune or a tragedy-free existence to find moments of okay. Somewhere around 4:30, she noticed that Sora's breathing had deepened and her hand had relaxed in her brother's grip. By 4:45, Minjun's eyes were closed, though Imani could tell he was fighting sleep, still afraid of what he might see when he let go. "It's okay to sleep," Imani said softly. "I'll stay right here. If you have a nightmare, I'll be here when you wake up." "Promise," Minjun whispered, his eyes still closed. Imani knew she shouldn't make promises she might not be able to keep, but looking at this 7-year-old boy who'd seen his mother murdered and couldn't close his eyes without reliving it, she found herself saying, "I promise." Minjun let out a long breath and finally, surrendered to sleep. Imani sat in that chair until 5:30, watching 2 children sleep peacefully for what she suspected was the first time in months. She watched their chests rise and fall in the steady rhythm of deep sleep. Watched their faces relax from the perpetual tension they'd been holding. Watched them dream whatever dreams came after the nightmares finally loosened their grip. At 5:30, she carefully stood and moved toward the door. She looked back once, making sure they were still asleep, and felt something crack open in her chest. Something she'd kept carefully sealed for 12 years. She'd spent over a decade punishing herself by staying disconnected, by working herself to exhaustion so she wouldn't have time to feel, by keeping everyone at arm's length so she'd never again have to experience the pain of losing someone she loved. She'd convinced herself that the best way to honor Keisha and Marcus, her little sister and brother, was to make sure she never cared about anyone enough to fail them the way she'd failed her siblings. But sitting with Minjun and Sora, teaching them to breathe through panic, sharing her own broken pieces with them, she'd felt something she hadn't felt in 12 years. Purpose. Connection. The fragile possibility that her pain might actually mean something if she could use it to help someone else survive theirs. Imani slipped out of the room and closed the door silently behind her. She had 2.5 hours left on her shift, and she was drastically behind schedule. She'd have to skip her break and work double time to finish everything before the family woke up. She grabbed her mop and bucket and headed for the next hallway, trying to convince herself that what had just happened was a one-time thing, an anomaly, something she could file away and forget about as soon as she left this house. But she knew, even as she scrubbed baseboards and polished fixtures, that she was lying to herself. Something had shifted in that bedroom. Some door she'd spent 12 years keeping locked had opened just enough to let a crack of light through. And she had no idea what she was supposed to do about that. Jin-Woo had fallen asleep at his desk somewhere around 4 in the morning, his head resting on his arms, the security monitor still glowing in front of him. When he jerked awake at 7:15, his neck was stiff and his mouth tasted like old coffee and regret. The first thing he did was check the monitors, the twins' bedroom, empty beds, neatly made. His heart rate spiked immediately. They never made their beds. They were usually still in them at this hour, exhausted from another sleepless night, but too afraid to actually rest. Jin-Woo was halfway out of his chair when he heard it. Laughter, coming from downstairs. He stood frozen, wondering if he was still asleep, if this was some kind of cruel dream his exhausted brain had conjured. His children hadn't laughed in 6 months, hadn't made a sound louder than a whisper unless they were screaming from nightmares. He moved toward the sound like a man in a trance, following the bright thread of his daughter's giggle down the hallway, down the stairs, toward the kitchen. The scene that greeted him made no sense. Minjun and Sora sat at the kitchen island, still in their pajamas, eating pancakes. Mrs. Chen stood at the stove, flipping another pancake with the kind of satisfied smile Jin-Woo hadn't seen on her face since she'd started working for them. And his children, his traumatized, sleepless children, looked almost normal. "Dad," Sora noticed him first. "Mrs. Chen made pancakes shaped like animals. Mine is a turtle." "Mine is supposed to be a dragon, but it looks more like a blob," Minjun added. And there was something in his voice that Jin-Woo hadn't heard in so long he'd almost forgotten what it sounded like. Lightness. "Good morning, Mr. Park," Mrs. Chen said. "I hope you don't mind. They came downstairs asking for breakfast at 6:30. "Actually asking. And hungry." Jin-Woo stared at his children. Sora had syrup on her chin. Minjun was actually eating, not just pushing food around his plate the way he usually did. They both had color in their faces instead of the grayish pallor of the perpetually exhausted. "Did you sleep?" Jin-Woo asked, the question coming out rougher than he intended. The twins looked at each other. A whole conversation seemed to happen in that glance. "Yes," Minjun said finally. "We did." "All night?" "Almost all night," Sora corrected. "I woke up once, but I did the breathing thing and fell back asleep." "The breathing thing?" "Box breathing," Minjun explained. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out, 4 counts hold. Immani taught us. Jin-Woo felt like he'd missed several crucial pages in a book. "Who is Immani?" The twins exchanged another glance, this one more uncertain. "The cleaning lady," Sora said quietly. "She was here last night. We had a panic attack and she helped us." Every protective instinct Jin-Woo possessed went on high alert. A stranger had been in his children's bedroom in the middle of the night. A stranger had interacted with his traumatized children without his knowledge or permission. A stranger had apparently succeeded where $2 million worth of specialists had failed. "What do you mean she helped you?" "We couldn't breathe," Minjun said. Sora was having a really bad attack. The lady, Imani, she heard us. She came in and taught us how to breathe. She sat with us until we fell asleep. She didn't try to fix us, Sora added. She just understood. Jin-Woo pulled out his phone and opened the security app, scrolling back through the footage from last night. He found it at 3:17 in the morning. A woman in a cleaning service uniform pushing open the door to the twins' bedroom. Entering. Sitting on the floor. Talking to his children for nearly 25 minutes before they got into bed. Then sitting in a chair between their beds for over an hour while they slept. He should be furious. Should be calling the cleaning company immediately to report this breach of protocol. Should be worried about what this woman might have said or done to his vulnerable children. But when he looked at Minjun and Sora, eating pancakes and looking more rested than they had in 6 months, fury wasn't what he felt. Did she hurt you? He asked. Did she do anything that made you uncomfortable? Both twins shook their heads emphatically. She was nice, Sora said. She told us about her sister and brother who died in a fire. She said she still has nightmares too. She said being scared and brave can happen at the same time, Minjun added. No one ever told us that before. Everyone always wants us to just stop being scared. Jin-Woo watched the security footage again, this time with the sound turned up. He couldn't hear everything, but he caught pieces. The woman's voice, low and steady, teaching his children to breathe, talking about ordinary things, making her own pain small and normal and survivable. She'd done in one night what an army of professionals hadn't been able to do in 6 months. She'd given his children hope that they could survive their fear. I want to find her, Jin-Woo said. Do you know her last name? Did she tell you anything about where she lives? Just Imani, Sora said. She cleans at a school and a hospital too. She has 3 jobs, and a cat named Winston who is actually a girl. Jin-Woo nodded slowly, his mind already working through the logistics. He had the cleaning company's number. He had security footage with a clear image of her face. He had resources and connections, and the ability to find one cleaning woman in a city of millions. Mr. Park, Mrs. Chen said carefully. If I may, the children seem better this morning than they have since I started working here. Whatever that woman did, it worked. I know, Jin-Woo said. That's exactly what worries me. He spent the next 3 hours in his office, making calls. The cleaning company was apologetic and defensive in equal measure. Yes, that was Imani Williams, one of their contract workers. No, she absolutely should not have entered the children's bedroom. Yes, she would be disciplined. No, they could not give out her personal contact information due to privacy policies. Jin-Woo pulled up everything he could find on Imani Williams. It wasn't much. 28 years old, no social media presence, no criminal record. She'd been working for the cleaning company for 4 years, always overnight shifts. Before that, various jobs in custodial and service work going back to when she was 16. He found one news article from 12 years ago. An apartment fire in the South Side, 2 children dead, ages 6 and 4, Keisha Williams and Marcus Williams. Their 16-year-old sister, Imani Williams, had survived. The fire had been ruled accidental, caused by faulty wiring in an old building. Imani had been babysitting. She'd been asleep when the fire started. Jin-Woo stared at the article, at the grainy photo of a teenage girl with hollow eyes being led away from a smoking building by a police officer. She'd been just a child herself, trusted to watch her younger siblings. And she'd woken up to find them dead. No wonder she understood. No wonder Minjun and Sora had responded to her in a way they hadn't responded to anyone else. She wasn't speaking from a textbook or a training manual. She was speaking from the same deep well of guilt and grief that his children were drowning in. His phone rang. David Kim again. The board meeting is in 2 hours, David said without preamble. They're voting on whether to accept Marcus Chen's buyout offer. If you're not here, they're going to interpret it as surrender. I need more time. Jin-Woo, you don't have more time. This is it. Show up and fight or lose everything you've built. Jin-Woo looked at the security footage again, frozen on the image of a cleaning woman sitting between his children's beds at 4 in the morning, keeping watch over two broken kids who'd finally found someone who spoke their language. I lost everything I built 6 months ago, Jin-Woo said quietly. The company is just money and ego. My children are what matters. And for the first time since Catherine died, they slept through the night. I'm not leaving them right now to save a company that's already cost me too much. They slept? David's tone shifted immediately. How? A cleaning woman taught them box breathing and sat with them. There was a long pause. A cleaning woman succeeded where every specialist failed. Apparently. So find her, hire her, pay her whatever she wants, and then get on a plane to Seoul and save your company, because I guarantee that if Marcus Chen takes over, the first thing he's going to do is dismantle everything, and that includes the security software that keeps your house and your children safe. Jin-Woo hadn't thought about it that way. The company wasn't just his legacy, it was the foundation of the fortress he'd built around his family. If Marcus took over, he'd gut the research division, sell off the patents, eliminate the very technology that Jin-Woo had installed in every corner of his home. I'll find her, Jin-Woo said, but I'm not making any promises about Seoul. He hung up before David could argue further. Then he called his head of security, a former detective named Richard Park, no relation, who specialized in finding people who didn't want to be found. I need you to locate someone, Jin-Woo said. Imani Williams, 28 years old, works for Premier Cleaning Services. I need to know where she lives, where she works her other jobs, and how to contact her. I need this information by end of business today. Any particular reason? Richard asked. She helped my children sleep. Say no more. I'll have everything by 3 o'clock. Richard was as good as his word. At 2:47, Jin-Woo's email pinged with a comprehensive report. Imani Williams lived in a studio apartment in a neighborhood that made Jin-Woo wince when he saw the crime statistics. She worked day shift as a custodian at Lincoln Elementary School, evening shift at Mercy General Hospital, and overnight shift for Premier Cleaning Services. She had no car, took 3 different buses to get between jobs, and averaged about 4 hours of sleep a day when she was lucky. The report included her work schedule for the next week. Tomorrow, Thursday, she'd be at Lincoln Elementary from 7 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. There was a note that she usually ate lunch in the janitor's closet on the first floor because the faculty lounge made her uncomfortable. Jin-Woo read the report 3 times, each time feeling a growing sense of disbelief. This woman worked 90-plus hours a week at back-breaking jobs that barely paid above minimum wage. She lived in a studio apartment in a dangerous neighborhood. She'd been doing this for 12 years, ever since her siblings died. She was punishing herself, working herself to exhaustion so she wouldn't have time to think or feel or process the guilt she'd been carrying since she was 16 years old. Jin-Woo recognized the pattern because he'd been doing the same thing for the last 6 months, burying himself in work, in security protocols, in anything that would keep him from having to sit with the knowledge that he'd failed to protect the person he loved most. He looked at the twins' bedroom monitor. Sora was showing Minjun a drawing she'd made. It was the first time Jin-Woo had seen her draw anything other than dark, disturbing images since Catherine's death. This drawing showed 3 figures, 2 small ones holding hands, and 1 larger figure with kind eyes. Immani. His children had found hope in a woman who'd given up on finding it for herself. And Jin-Woo was going to do whatever it took to convince that woman to give his family a chance at healing, even if it meant confronting her in a janitor's closet at Lincoln Elementary School. He picked up his phone and dialed. His mother answered on the second ring. Jin-Woo. Finally. The board meeting is in less than 2 hours and David says you're not coming. Have you lost your mind? Probably, Jin-Woo said. I need you to do something for me. I'm not babysitting your children so you can avoid your responsibilities. That's not what I'm asking. I need you to spend the afternoon with Minjun and Sora. They slept last night. Really slept. And I need to make sure the person who helped them is willing to help them again. There was a long silence. They slept? All night. For the first time since Catherine died. His mother's voice softened in a way it rarely did anymore. How? A woman who understands what they're going through. A woman who lost her own siblings to a tragedy and carries the same guilt they're carrying. And you think this woman can help them? I think she already has. I just need to convince her to keep doing it. Another pause. Then, I'll be there in an hour, but Jin-Woo, don't get your hopes up. Sometimes one good night doesn't mean anything. Sometimes it's just a fluke. I know, Jin-Woo said, but sometimes a fluke is all you need to remember that better is possible. He hung up and looked at the address in Richard's report. Lincoln Elementary School, across town. If he left now, he could be there by lunchtime. He could talk to Imani Williams, explain the situation, make her an offer she couldn't refuse. Except he had a feeling that a woman who'd spent 12 years punishing herself wasn't going to be swayed by money or logic or any of the usual tools Jin-Woo used to get what he wanted. She'd spent 12 years building walls around herself, and he was going to have to figure out how to reach through them without triggering every defense mechanism she'd developed. Jin-Woo grabbed his coat and headed for the garage. He'd faced hostile boardrooms and cutthroat competitors and the worst night of his life. He could handle one conversation with a cleaning woman who'd accidentally given his children the first peaceful sleep they'd had in 6 months. He hoped. Lincoln Elementary School smelled like floor wax and cafeteria pizza and the particular kind of chaos that came from housing 400 children under one roof. Jin-Woo had never been inside a public school before. His children attended Hampton Academy, a private international school where tuition cost more than most people's annual salary, and the hallways smelled like expensive air freshener and privilege. This was different. The linoleum floors were clean but worn. The walls were decorated with student artwork and motivational posters that had seen better days. The main office had a harried energy, with phones ringing and a line of parents waiting to sign in late students. Jin-Woo approached the desk where a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a Mrs. Rodriguez, office manager nameplate, was typing rapidly on a computer that looked at least a decade old. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm looking for Imani Williams. I understand she works here?" Mrs. Rodriguez looked up, her eyes taking in Jin-Woo's custom-tailored suit and expensive watch with the kind of quick assessment that suggested she'd dealt with plenty of wealthy parents making demands. "Imani is our custodian," she said carefully. "May I ask what this is regarding?" Jin-Woo had prepared several different explanations on the drive over. Professional inquiry, security matter, personal business. But standing in this office, watching a harried staff member who probably dealt with impossible situations every day, he found himself telling the truth. "She helped my children last night. They've been struggling with trauma, and she was able to reach them in a way that no one else has been able to. I'd like to speak with her about continuing to help them." Mrs. Rodriguez's expression softened immediately. "Your children are the Park twins? The ones who lost their mother?" Jin-Woo nodded, surprised. "You know about that. It was all over the news 6 months ago. I'm so sorry for your loss." She glanced at her computer screen. "Imani is on her lunch break right now. She usually eats in the utility closet on the first floor, end of the east hallway. But, Mr. Park, I should warn you. Imani is very private. She doesn't like unexpected visitors. I understand. I promise. I just want to talk." Mrs. Rodriguez studied him for a moment, then seemed to come to a decision. "East hallway. Last door on the left. It'll say custodial on it. And Mr. Park?" "Imani is one of the kindest people I've ever met. Please don't upset her." Jin-Woo found the door exactly where Mrs. Rodriguez had indicated. He knocked softly, not sure if he should just walk in or wait for an invitation. "It's open," came a voice from inside, the same voice he'd heard on the security footage, low and steady. He pushed open the door to find a small closet converted into a makeshift break room. There was a folding chair, a tiny table, shelves stocked with cleaning supplies, and Imani Williams sitting on an upturned mop bucket, eating a sandwich from a plastic bag. She looked up when he entered, and Jin-Woo saw the exact moment recognition hit. Her eyes widened slightly and she stood up so fast she nearly knocked over her water bottle. "Mr. Park," she said, and he could hear the worry in her voice. "I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't have gone into your children's room last night. I broke protocol, and if you're here to file a complaint with my supervisor, I completely understand. I'll accept whatever consequences." "I'm not here to file a complaint," Jin-Woo interrupted. "I'm here to thank you." Imani blinked. "Thank me? My children slept last night, really slept, for the first time in 6 months. They woke up this morning and ate breakfast. They smiled. My daughter laughed. Do you have any idea how long it's been since I heard my daughter laugh?" Imani sat back down on the bucket, looking shaken. "They told you about me. They told me about box breathing, about a woman named Imani who understood what they were going through. About someone who didn't try to fix them." Jin-Woo paused. "I looked at the security footage. I saw what you did. How long you sat with them." "I'm sorry," Imani said again. "I know that must have been scary, seeing a stranger in their room. But they were having a panic attack, and you did exactly what they needed, what no one else, including me, has been able to do for them." Jin-Woo pulled the folding chair closer and sat down, making sure he wasn't blocking the door in case she wanted to leave. "I read about your siblings, about the fire. I'm sorry for your loss." Imani's whole body went rigid. "How did you—" "I have resources. I needed to know who my children had been talking to in the middle of the night. I needed to know if they were safe." He held up a hand when he saw her expression. "I'm not here to invade your privacy or make you uncomfortable. I'm here to ask for your help." "My help?" "I want to hire you to be my children's overnight caregiver." Imani stared at him like he'd just suggested she fly to the moon. "Mr. Park, I'm not a nanny, I'm not a therapist, I'm definitely not qualified to take care of traumatized children. And yet, you succeeded where every qualified professional failed. My children connected with you in one night more than they've connected with anyone in 6 months. That has to mean something. It means I got lucky. It means I happened to be there at the right moment with the right words. That's not a skill. That's not something I can replicate." "Why not?" "Because I'm a mess." Imani's voice rose, then immediately dropped back down, conscious of where they were. "I work 3 jobs because I can't sit still long enough to process my own trauma. I live in a studio apartment that I can barely afford. I haven't had a meaningful relationship in 12 years because I don't know how to let people in. Your children need someone stable and trained and emotionally healthy. I'm none of those things." Jin-Woo leaned forward. "My children need someone who understands what it's like to survive something that should have broken you. Someone who knows that healing isn't linear and that sometimes just surviving the night is enough. Someone who won't judge them for being scared or tell them to move on or promise them that everything will be okay when we both know that's a lie." "I can't," Imani said, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. "Why not?" "Because what if I fail them? What if last night was a fluke and tonight they can't sleep and they realize I'm just another person who can't fix them? Then we try again the next night and the night after that, until eventually there are more good nights than bad ones." Jin-Woo pulled out his phone and showed her a photo from this morning. Minjun and Sora at the breakfast table, eating pancakes, smiling. "You did this. In one night, you gave them hope. I'm not asking you to cure them or save them. I'm asking you to sit with them through the hard nights and teach them how to breathe when the panic comes. You already know how to do that." Imani looked at the photo for a long moment. Jin-Woo could see the war happening behind her eyes, the part of her that wanted to help battling with the part of her that was terrified of caring about anyone enough to fail them. "I have 3 jobs," she said finally. "I can't just quit." "You wouldn't have to quit. Just reduce your hours. I'll pay you more than you make at all 3 jobs combined." "I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's employment. Fair wages for important work." Jin-Woo named a figure that made Imani's eyes go wide. "That's more than fair, that's insane. My children's well-being is worth more than money. But if it makes you feel better, consider it hazard pay for dealing with a traumatized billionaire and his equally traumatized children. Imani let out a surprised laugh, then looked shocked that she'd laughed. You're serious about this? Completely serious. 1 week trial. You come to the house from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. You don't have to clean anything. You just have to be there for the twins. If it doesn't work out, you walk away with a week's pay and no hard feelings. And if it does work out, then we figure out something longer term. But let's start with 1 week. Imani was quiet for a long time, absently tearing pieces off her sandwich without eating them. Jin-Woo forced himself to wait, to not push, to let her come to the decision on her own. Your children called me by my first name, she said eventually. Not Miss Williams or ma'am, just Imani. Is that a problem? No, it's just different. The families I clean for, I'm always invisible, just part of the furniture. But Minjun and Sora, they saw me, like I was a real person, not just the help. You are a real person, and they need someone real right now, not someone putting on a professional performance. Imani nodded slowly. 1 week, but I need to keep my day job here at the school. I like this job. The kids leave me nice notes sometimes, and Mrs. Rodriguez treats me like family. I'm not giving that up. Keep whatever jobs you want. I just need you at the house overnight. And what about you? Are you going to be there, watching me through security cameras, making sure I'm doing everything right? Jin-Woo had the grace to look embarrassed. I'll try not to. That's not exactly reassuring. I have trust issues. My wife died because I didn't have enough security in place. Now I have too much security and I can't seem to stop monitoring everything. That sounds exhausting. It is. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Jin-Woo noticed details about the closet that he'd missed initially. A small plant on one of the shelves, somehow thriving despite the lack of natural light. Student drawings taped to the wall, colorful crayon portraits with messages like, "Thank you, Imani," and "You're the best." A photo tucked into the corner of a shelf, 2 young children with bright smiles. Imani caught him looking at the photo. Keisha and Marcus. That was taken about a month before the fire. They look happy. They were. They were good kids. Keisha wanted to be a veterinarian. Marcus wanted to be a superhero, which is really just a specific type of firefighter when you're 4 years old. She smiled, but it was laced with old pain. I don't talk about them much. Most people get uncomfortable. I don't. No, I suppose you wouldn't. You lost someone too. Catherine, my wife. She was the steady one. I was always chasing the next deal, the next challenge. She kept me grounded. Jin-Woo's throat tightened. The night she died, she called me 3 times. I sent her to voicemail because I was working on a presentation. 3 calls, and I ignored everyone. You couldn't have known. That's what everyone says. It doesn't make it easier. No, Imani agreed. It doesn't. They understood each other, Jin-Woo realized. 2 people who'd lost the people they were supposed to protect. 2 people who'd spent months or years punishing themselves for being human, for making the kind of ordinary mistakes that happen to have extraordinary consequences. When would you want me to start? Imani asked. Tonight? She laughed again, and Jin-Woo was starting to recognize that sound as her default response when something caught her off guard in a way that wasn't entirely unpleasant. I have a shift at the hospital this evening. Tomorrow night? Tomorrow night works. I'll text you the address, though I assume you already know it since you cleaned there 2 nights ago. I barely remember the house. I was focused on the job, not the decor. Imani stood up, gathering her lunch trash. Mr. Park, I need you to understand something. I'm going to do my best to help your children. But I can't promise the miracles. I can't promise that every night will be like last night. Trauma doesn't work in straight lines. I know. I'm not looking for miracles. I'm looking for someone who will sit in the mess with us and not try to clean it up too quickly. Imani smiled, a real smile this time. I'm good at sitting in mess. It's kind of my specialty. Jin-Woo stood as well, extending his hand. Thank you for taking a chance on us. Imani shook his hand. her grip firm and calloused from years of hard work. Thank you for not firing me for breaking into your kid's room in the middle of the night. Technically, you didn't break in. The door was unlocked. Is everything in your house monitored? Everything. That's definitely not creepy at all. Jin-Woo found himself smiling. My therapist agrees with you. You have a therapist? 3, actually. 1 for grief, 1 for anxiety, 1 for the guilt that keeps me up at night. None of them have helped much, but I keep trying. 3 therapists, Imani repeated, and here I can't even afford one. The comment hung in the air, a reminder of the vast difference in their circumstances. Jin-Woo had unlimited resources and access to the best mental health care money could buy. Imani worked 3 jobs and ate lunch in a custodial closet and probably hadn't seen a doctor in years unless it was at the hospital where she cleaned floors. I'll include health insurance in your employment package, Jin-Woo said. Full coverage, dental, vision, mental health. You should be able to access the care you need. Imani's eyes widened. For a 1-week trial? For however long this lasts, everyone deserves access to health care. Most billionaires don't think that way. Most billionaires haven't spent 6 months watching their children suffer while they have every resource in the world except the one thing that actually matters. Which is? Someone who understands. Jin-Woo checked his watch. I should let you finish your lunch. I've already taken up too much of your break. It's fine. I usually just sit here and scroll through my phone anyway. It was nice to have actual conversation. Imani walked him to the door of the closet. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., I'll be there. Thank you, Imani. Truly. Don't thank me yet. Let's see if I can actually do this. Jin-Woo left Lincoln Elementary with a strange feeling in his chest. Something lighter than he'd felt in months. It wasn't quite hope, because hope felt too dangerous, too likely to be crushed. But it was possibility, the small, fragile chance that maybe his children could heal, that maybe he could heal, that maybe a cleaning woman who worked 3 jobs and carried 12 years of guilt could be exactly what his family needed. He got into his car and checked his phone. 17 missed calls from David, 4 from his mother, 23 emails marked urgent. He ignored all of them and drove home to tell his children that Imani was coming back.